My ex left me a week before our wedding by text message for his dream. 3 years later, he shows up, but I'm now married to someone he knows. Hi, so I, a 30-year-old, was engaged to my ex-fiancé Felix, 34, when I was 26 almost 4 years ago. We were supposed to get married 3 years ago, but he left me by text message a week before the wedding and went to Germany, where he was offered his dream job. Felix and I met through friends and were together for 3 years before he proposed to me, and we got engaged. Felix was a zoology student and had been working here as a teacher when we met, but I always knew his dream was to do something great with his life and contribute to the world with what he studied, which is really noble. So when he was offered a research specialist position for a new study in his field, he accepted the job and left without even talking to me. A week before the wedding, he and his friends were going to Hawaii for his bachelor party, but he never showed up at the airport. Several hours later, we found out he was in Germany and that he was breaking things off with me because he had received a job offer there that he absolutely had to accept. He told me that he knew I wouldn't be able to leave my life, my friends and family, and my career here, and that he also didn't want me to sacrifice anything. He also didn't want to give up on his dreams and stay for me. So after thinking about it for months, he decided to go alone and take the leap by himself. He didn't want a long goodbye or even a discussion about it, so he decided to leave as quickly as possible. He apologized, said he was sure I would find someone better than him, and regretted that it had to end this way, but his dreams were too important for him to give up. I really had no problem with his dreams or whatever, but I just wished he had at least discussed things with me before making the decision and accepting the offer all those years ago. I've always been an architect, and my only reason for working was to make money and be able to buy myself everything I wanted, so I never had noble intentions to make a change in the world or do something good for society. I was quite selfish in my interests, so I guess I didn't understand his priorities, or maybe I was just a normal person who knew how important communication is and understood that you shouldn't lie to your fiancé and then leave them by text message a week before the wedding. But either way, after we broke up, we didn't stay in touch, obviously, and all our friends also cut ties with him. He and I had been great together while we were together, and the breakup literally came out of nowhere, so although I tried to be okay with it, I really wasn't. And I completely fell apart in the few weeks following the breakup. Felix paid all the wedding vendors as an apology, and I didn't have to spend a dime on anything, so I had no reason to talk to him. In our last conversation, which ended up being the breakup, I relived almost every day after he left. We had been living together for quite some time before he left. A few weeks after he broke up with me, his cousin Sam, 32, came to pick up his belongings, as he had left a lot behind so I wouldn't suspect anything. I had met Sam before at a couple of his family gatherings, but we weren't close, and neither were Sam and Felix, but apparently no one else in the family was talking to him. And Felix had offered Sam $2,000 to send his things. Sam was a guitarist in a band that was still struggling to make a name for themselves and needed the money, so he accepted the offer to do the job. When Sam came to the house to pick up Felix's last belongings, I kept my distance, but I must have looked really depressed, so instead of just taking the things and leaving, he decided to stay with me for a while and talk to me. I wasn't feeling very talkative, but he didn't leave until I told him everything about how I felt, and once I started, I just couldn't stop. It was embarrassing, but I ended up crying in front of him, and he comforted me the whole time. He let me vent all my feelings and then told me I had to be strong. He also said that Felix was an idiot and didn't know what he had lost, which made me feel considerably better about myself, because Felix's departure had completely shattered my self-esteem and confidence that day. He even gave me his number and told me to contact him whenever I wanted to talk to someone, and then he hugged me before saying goodbye. It was really sweet of him to do that, even though he had no reason to. He was only there to pick up his cousin's things and we weren't even close, but he still seemed to care about me, and that really moved me. We kept in touch and ended up becoming very good friends. In a couple of months, he was actually the one who helped me become happy again, and I don't think I would have been able to recover from that breakup if Sam hadn't been with me every step of the way. He convinced me to leave the house, go to work, and even go out with my friends on weekends instead of staying at home moping or drinking. But he also understood when I needed to take some time for myself, and he would come over on those days and just be there in silence with me. I didn't even realize when I fell in love with him over time, and he started spending more and more time at my house instead of his. One day, 2 years ago, he came to my house and then never left. so that's how we ended up moving in together. And although most people would say it was strange and rushed, I wouldn't say that because I really love him, and now we're married. So, I think we're meant to last. We moved in together, and eventually, earlier this year, we decided it was time to get married due to several practical and legal benefits. It was a small, intimate ceremony that not many people knew about, and that's exactly how we wanted it. Everyone in his family and all of my friends were told not to disclose any of this information to Felix. We didn't want him to find out because he would definitely find it strange that I married his cousin, and honestly, I didn't want to deal with the drama. So everyone was given strict instructions to keep it from him. Even Felix's parents had been invited to the ceremony, as they had been very kind to me even after our breakup, and they blessed our union. They also promised to keep this a secret from Felix, though I had my doubts since they had been in contact with him and had forgiven him a couple of months after our breakup. I didn't hold it against them, after all, he was their only son. But fortunately, everyone kept their promises, including his parents, and they made sure Felix didn't find out about our marriage. A few months have passed, and it's been marital and domestic bliss for Sam and me. I discovered that Felix was right when he said I had someone better waiting for me. Everything had been going well, but then last week, Felix showed up at my door out of nowhere, and it really took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting him. We hadn't spoken since our breakup, and 3 years had passed since then. After that, he hadn't bothered to talk to me or check on how I was doing, and I hadn't reached out to him either. He had returned home to visit for the holidays a couple of times, or so our mutual friends told me, but we never ran into each other, and he hadn't met up with any of our friends either. However, this time, he decided to come talk to me, and instead of contacting me to arrange a meeting like a normal person, he showed up at my door with a bouquet of flowers. Before I had a chance to say anything, he apologized for ruining our relationship and told me he was finally ready to work things out and wanted me back. He told me that the studio he had been working on turned out to be a failure, and they had exhausted all their funds. It was unlikely they'd be granted another fund in the near future, so he quit his job there and moved back here for good. He said he regretted letting me go, especially the way he broke up with me via text. He said I deserved better after being with him for so long, and I was glad he at least realized that. He ended his romantic speech by saying that now that he was back, we could pick up where we left off and get married as soon as possible because, in the 3 years we were apart, he realized I was the woman of his dreams and that he made a huge mistake in leaving me. So he wanted to give our relationship a real shot this time and get back together. I waited for him to finish his speech and didn't interrupt him once while he talked because I wanted to see where he was going with this. But when he finished speaking, I didn't say much and simply showed him the ring on my finger, informing him that I was already married to Sam, his cousin, who turned out to be 1,000 times better than him, and that his apology was too little, too late. His jaw literally dropped to the floor, and I took that opportunity to close the door in his face and tell him to leave. Before that, I was furious and tried to calm myself down until Sam got home. It was the weekend, and he was out with a couple of work friends, so he hadn't been home. His band had disbanded a couple of years back, around the same time we started getting serious, and he joined his friend's father's event management business. And if the events they serviced needed a band, he and his friends would get together and play for them too, so it was perfect for him. But anyway, it had been a tough week at work for him because there was a lot of backlog, so this was a well-deserved break. And I didn't want to bother him, so I didn't text or call to tell him about this until he got home. Only then did I inform him about Felix's visit. He told me he had received several calls from his uncle, Felix's father, but didn't know what it was about. And since he was out with friends, he thought he could just return the call later. But now that he knew, he felt uneasy about the whole situation. He told me he hadn't really considered how this would look to Felix when he found out. I told him it didn't matter what Felix thought because he was the one who left me without a proper explanation or even a goodbye, and his opinion was pretty much irrelevant. After that conversation, we decided to talk to Felix's parents since they had been trying to reach Sam multiple times while he was out. They had tried calling me too, but I hadn't really checked my phone because I was upset. Once we got in touch with them, they informed us that right after Felix visited me, he went to his parents' house and really lost it over what he found out. First, he yelled at them for keeping this secret from him for so many months, years even, counting the time we were dating and living together. He accused them and the whole family of betraying him and said they were all sick in the head for supporting our marriage and allowing this to happen. He said I was apparently a disgusting person for going after his cousin because I couldn't have him, and was convinced I was doing this out of revenge and didn't actually feel anything real for Sam. She said that she was simply using it to make him feel jealous, but now the pretense was over and he wasn't jealous, just disgusted. I couldn't believe she said such things about me because there wasn't a single word of truth in it. If I really wanted to make him jealous, I would have done it long ago and wouldn't have waited for him to come crawling back just to tell him that I'm now married. And most importantly, I'm not a psychopath who's still obsessed with him and married just to make him feel insecure. I have real feelings for Sam, and that's why I'm with him. I don't owe him an explanation, so I didn't continue with it. In the following days, both Sam and I tried to pretend that he hadn't even returned, and tried to move on with our lives. But Felix showed up again a couple of days ago, and this time we were both at home. We had just returned from work, and when we heard Felix shouting for us, we went out and saw him causing a drunken scene in the street in front of our house. He was shouting at the top of his lungs about how we had ruined his life, which didn't even make sense because he didn't even know about us until a few days ago. As soon as we opened the door and he saw me, we realized we had made a mistake because as soon as he saw me, he began to sob violently. He started talking about how he really loved me and how he never stopped thinking about me, even when he was living in Germany. And the only reason he hadn't contacted me was that he didn't want to disturb my peace by coming back into my life. He said he could come to terms with the fact that I had moved on, but he couldn't accept the fact that I had moved on with his cousin of all people. He said I was selfish and insensitive, and that it was shameful of us to get married knowing about my history with him. At that moment, Sam called the police and they took him away. But I couldn't stop thinking about the things he said. It was really upsetting to see him act that way, because he was usually a pretty grounded guy, and to me, it was clear that seeing me with Sam had really torn him apart. Sam and I haven't talked about that incident, and we're pretending it never happened, but I don't know how much longer we can keep acting like these things aren't happening. To be honest, we never considered what would happen once Felix returned, how he would react to this, or what he would have to say about our marriage. And honestly, it shouldn't matter. But for some reason it does. We were able to ignore my past with him for a long time because he wasn't around us, but now that he's back and making his presence felt, it's becoming harder and harder to ignore that part of my history. Fortunately, things haven't been awkward between us, but we know there's a lot left unsaid between Sam and me, and I desperately want to talk about it and get it out of the way. At the same time, I can't help but feel that Felix is probably right to feel bad that Sam and I are together. If my ex married my cousin, I would probably feel the same way. And on top of that, there was also the fact that his entire family was involved in this. They knew about it and never told him, which could have led to a complete breakdown. But that's not really my fault, and yet, for some reason, I still feel like it is. So I feel guilty for marrying my ex-fiancé's cousin after he left me via text just a week before our wedding. Update 1. Hi, first of all, thank you to everyone who responded to my post and stood by me. It means a lot to me and to Sam that so many people are on our side. I'll always be grateful to everyone who said such kind things about us, because we really needed it to get our stuff in order. Especially with what's been happening with Felix and all. It's been a week since he had to be taken by the police when he showed up drunk at our door and created a scene, and by now, practically the entire family knows. They made sure to reach out to us and tell us that we weren't in the wrong, and that we shouldn't believe what Felix has been saying about us. There's nothing shameful or disgusting about us falling in love and getting married. In fact, it's the opposite of disgusting. It's beautiful. And we should embrace it, instead of letting some loser affect us with his negativity. Everyone has cut ties with him, including his parents, and I couldn't be happier about it. Literally not a single person in his family is supporting him, and that tells Sam and me everything we need to know. It's perfectly fine for us to be together because it's not like I was cheating on him, and he's the one who left me in the worst way possible. And Sam healed me, so I have nothing to be ashamed of. I also told my friends, and they were on my side as well. They said Felix was crazy and jealous, and that made me feel a lot better. But still, Sam and I have decided to get counseling because Felix's return hasn't been easy for us as a couple, and we feel we need to work through some things. We start in a couple of days. Update 2. Okay, so Felix only gave us 2 weeks to deal with our feelings before making his next attack, and this time it happened online. The last time, he insulted us to our faces, showing up drunk and crazy at our house. This time, He felt the need to reach more people and talk nonsense about us in front of a wider audience. So he posted a rant about us online. He accused us of being together only because we wanted revenge on him and said that we were both failures who couldn't stand to see other people succeed. And we probably bonded over him and got together just out of spite. He even hinted that the reason I didn't try to get back together with him after the breakup was because I was already involved with Sam, and he had given me the perfect excuse. It was disgusting that he insinuated I had been cheating on him when he knew very well that wasn't the case. I was madly in love with him, but he was the one who ended things with me so he could pursue his dreams or whatever. He didn't even consider me worthy of a conversation, yet he expected me to wait for him. Talk about narcissism and delusion. I didn't see the post myself because I haven't followed him on any platform since we broke up, but a couple of my friends sent it to me. I told them I would sue him for defamation if he kept this up and asked them to relay the message, and only then did he take down the post. But then he texted me and said I deserved it, calling me a very nasty word that starts with P. I really lost my temper at that moment and told him that if he ever texted me again, I would truly ruin his life and make sure he never recovered from it. Even then, he had the audacity to reply and said I deserved to end up with Sam because he was nothing more than a mediocre loser with a guitar and completely useless without me. And then he said he was pretty sure that if I had managed to find someone, then he probably had someone more beautiful than me waiting for him and he didn't regret leaving me. He just wished he had done it on the wedding day and made me cry a bit more. I was shocked that he could even think these things, let alone say them. I decided to block his number after that, which I hadn't done in the past few years because I never expected him to text me, and I definitely wasn't going to text him, so it just slipped my mind. But now he was finally blocked, and he had no other way of contacting me. If he shows up at my house again, I'll definitely request a restraining order. Update 3. Hi. So, I sent screenshots of my last conversation with Felix to his entire family and all my friends. None of them were talking to him anyway, and those screenshots just ensured that they never would again. They were all as shocked as I was when I saw those messages, and everything made sense when his parents told us he had started drinking in Germany. Apparently, he was telling the truth when he said he couldn't get over me, even when he was there. And because of that, along with his failed research project, he started drinking and now has a serious addiction. It explains his behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. His parents told us he had been living in a hotel, but they decided to bring him back home because they were afraid of losing him otherwise. They apologized on his behalf for everything and said they had to take care of him because he was their only child, and they couldn't live with themselves if they abandoned him. Honestly, we can understand where they're coming from, and well, we really don't want to be on bad terms with them. In the end, they're his parents, and he has no one else to rely on but them, and I don't think any of us would want something to happen to him, no matter what kind of person he is. His parents are kind people. They've always been nice to me and have stood up to him when he messed up. So if they want to help him, I respect that. Sam and I are more in love than ever, and marriage therapy has made us stronger than ever. In fact, we've even started thinking about having a baby and finally starting a family together. I'm in talks for a promotion, and with a better salary, we can move to a bigger house in a better location. So that's how we're doing, and we hope things only get better from here.